In this section, we'll talk about personal safety. What is personal safety? It's keeping ourselves and those we care about safe. Threats to our safety can come from a lot of different sources. The threats can come from nature, from animals, or from humans. They can be accidental or intentional. To help us understand how this works, let's look at it from both sides, from the perspective of the source and from the perspective of the victim. Let's call them the predator and the prey. There's a saying, know your enemy. If you can understand what he's thinking and how he operates, you can defend yourself. Let's look at some examples of threats and how they happen. Intentional threats follow an attack cycle by a predator upon their prey. The three stages of the attack cycle are selection, stalking, and finally the attack. If we understand the attack cycle, we can take steps during the selection phase to prevent it from ever getting started, during the stalking phase to disrupt it while it's still being planned, and finally during the attack phase to defend ourselves if we do come under attack. For an example, let's look at the attack cycle with a lion in Africa. The lioness has to eat and feed her cubs. Her selection phase of the attack cycle starts as she looks out over the antelope herd. What's she looking for? She just wants the easiest prey. So she's looking for the weak, the alone, and the unaware. She sees the young one who wandered away from the herd. Next, the stalking phase begins as she silently creeps toward the prey. She'll get as close as she can until the prey becomes aware of her presence. Then the attack phase of the attack cycle begins. If she's done the first two phases right and executes a good attack, she'll have her meal. Now let's look at the attack cycle by a human predator in your hometown. And yes, there really are human predators in your hometown. His selection phase of the attack cycle begins as he looks out over the people herd. What's he looking for? He wants the easiest prey, so he's looking for the weak, the alone, and the unaware. Does that sound familiar? Predators all want the same thing in their prey. After he selects his prey, he stalks, and then finally he attacks. Predators all operate in the same way, and it's called the attack cycle. Now, there are a lot of ways this could happen. It could be spur of the moment or a lengthy plan. It could be someone you know or a stranger. It could be in your home, in your car at work, or out in public. It could be a physical attack, an emotional attack, sexual attack, or a property theft. Or it could just be an accident by someone being stupid or careless. The bottom line is the bad stuff does happen to good people. If we understand how it can happen and can be aware of the signs, we'll have a much better chance of keeping it from happening to us. Now, let's look at the attack cycle from the victim or the prey's point of view. We need to look at what we can do to break the attack cycle. The three phases of selection, stalking, and attack, they're still there, but we can keep them from happening to us. Most self-defense classes focus on how to defend yourself during the attack phase. It might be a karate class or a pepper gel class or a concealed carry class like this one. But the truth is, if you find yourself in a position where you need to use a gun in the attack phase, you've likely ignored steps to keep you from being selected and the warning signs in the stalking phase. Those are areas where you should be doing most of your preparation. If you do preparation right, you can reduce your chances of being selected by at least 90%. Let's look at what we can do in each of the attack cycle phases. To break the selection phase, we use prevention. To break the stalking phase, we use alertness. To break the attack cycle, we use action. For prevention, we need to do everything we can to not be the one who gets selected. We need to use common sense, like don't go down that dark alley, don't go into the bad part of town, don't go across that swollen stream, don't drink and drive, don't text and drive. We need to have good habits like locking our doors, turning on exterior lights, knowing options and exits. We need to be aware of what's going on around us. We need to keep our phone from distracting us while we're in public. We need to have good manners like treating people nicely, saying excuse me, saying I'm sorry. We don't call people nasty names. We don't honk at other drivers. We don't make obscene gestures. We need to build in safety like installing deadbolts in our house, installing extra long screws in our door so that it can't be kicked in, installing window film so the windows can't be broken, installing external lights and motion detectors, getting a big dog, posting warning signs. Most importantly, we need to have a defensive mindset. Now, there are a lot of different definitions of defensive mindset. Here's mine, and I'm going to personalize it. I realize that bad stuff can happen to me. Here's an example. I was talking to a relative about this one time, and he just shouted at me, "Nothing bad is ever going to happen to me." How do you talk to someone like that? You can't. I accept the fact that I am responsible for my own safety. I will have situational awareness. I will be ready to act on a moment's notice. I will win any conflict that is thrust upon me. Now, those were some ways to break the selection phase of the attack cycle by using prevention. Now let's look at ways to break the stalking phase by using alertness. So back in the selection phase, you probably won't even know that the predator's checking you out. Well, he's just looking. He looks like everybody else. But in the stalking phase, he's starting to make his move. At some point, you may become aware of him if you're paying attention. That's a big key, paying attention to your surroundings. But even if you do, you may not know for sure that he really is a predator. He may just be some guy out for a walk or some guy just going into a store. This is where you need to exercise caution. You need to force the issue so that you know for sure, giving you more time to deal with it. Well, how do you do this? You can go to the other side of the street or the other side of the aisle. If he follows you and does the same thing, now you know you've got a problem. You can put your hands out and yell, "Stop right there!" If he doesn't stop, you've got a problem. If a verbal situation is escalating, speak softly and don't argue. If you have to, get up and leave. There are a lot of states that require you to retreat from a dangerous situation before using deadly force. Even in stand your ground states where they don't require it, if you don't do it, it's going to go badly for you at your trial. This phase is your best opportunity to avoid an imminent threat. Do whatever it takes to get yourself out of it. You need to disrupt, diffuse, de-escalate, or reduce the situation. If you don't, you'll soon be in the attack phase of the attack cycle. So let's review the praise response to the 3 attack cycle phases. To break the selection phase, we use prevention. To break the stalking phase, we use alertness. To break the attack phase, we use action. The attack phase of the attack cycle is a very bad place to be. Okay, so maybe you've missed all the warning signs, you weren't paying attention. Or maybe it's the 10% where there was nothing that you could do to avoid it. It really doesn't matter how you got here. The reality is that it is here, and now you've got to deal with it. At this point, our action options are limited. and our time to implement them is limited. There are really only three things you can do. You can run, you can hide, or you can fight. But you have to do whatever it takes to stay out of the fight option. Once that starts, anything can happen, and it will likely be very bad. Take your gun out only as the last resort. Shoot someone only if you believe that he is about to kill you. If you shoot for any other reason, you're going to go to prison. I'm going to wrap up this section with the most important thing you need to know in this course. You heard me say it before. Here it is again. If you ever shoot someone, no matter how justified it is, your life as you know it is over. Don't ever do it unless it's the only absolute last resort to save your life or the life of someone you care about.